feeling like I'm academics. Can't ride away.
All right. So what was gonna kind of happen is that this Diddy trial is about to happen, people, and it's getting interesting because now we're seeing everything kind of laid out in front of us. Pause. Diddy is now coming out and finally admitting some of his sexual kinks, right? You know, the freaky ass niggas. This is the same kind of thing now being an allegation where it's like, when you have a kink that is not considered normal or traditional, when that then comes with an allegation, you're seen as some type of deviant. What Diddy's is trying to do, and by the way, the start of his trial or jury selection is actually in about it's in a week from now, right? It's a week and a day, or a week and 2 days. So the following Monday, not next Monday, but the next Monday. And that is going to be when his trial is supposed to start. The judge has declined him to have any pushbacks, even after he added Brian Steele to his attorney list. Brian Steele is a notorious lawyer who just got off Young Thug. And this is what we're now seeing. They denied extending the time for the trial. And what usually happens is federal court moves way swifter, way quicker than state court that's really bogged down. They're usually trying to get this shit going on. The reason why they denied Diddy the extension, they said, you already have a shit ton of lawyers. Have your lawyers catch your new lawyer up to speed and figure it out by 5th. The government has also claimed they gave all the evidence to Diddy and that Diddy should be prepared. Okay? Now, Diddy is now coming out and, you know, not necessarily coming out and saying, but like they're kind of angling their defense. Their defense seemed to say Diddy is a freaky ass nigga, but Diddy is not a creep, or he's not a rapist or a sexual or a sex trafficker. They've admitted that he is a swinger, which is very interesting. Okay. The reason why they would likely want to put that out there, because even though being a swinger is a non-traditional lifestyle or sexual type of choice, what does help Diddy is that he's looking forward to what's going to happen. Remember, there's no defendants other than Diddy. There's no co-conspirators that are charged or indicted. So who's going to testify against him? Well, we know for sure Cassie. But also what we do know, because we've heard this a bunch, the male escorts that were hired, they're going to as well testify, supposedly, some of them, against Diddy. So why is Diddy now putting out that he's a swinger? Because it even though it's some freaky shit, it normalizes or tries to normalize what you're going to see in court, that he would like, that he was watching other men have sex with his woman. And without trying to normalize it like, oh no, that's just my lifestyle choice, but it's all consensual, people might think that is, I'm pretty sure the prosecutor is going to kind of paint it as, yo, you are orchestrating a rape scene. Like, this woman don't want to do it. You are forcing other men to basically rape her, and you watching it. That's sick. What he's going to be contending is that I'm a swinger and Cassie was a swinger too. We both enjoyed other people. Okay? So lawyers plan to argue as Diddy's sex trial or sex trafficking trial that a disgraced music mogul was merely living a swinger lifestyle, and he's not a rapist like the feds have made him out to be. There's a lifestyle, call it swingers or whatever you will, that he thought was appropriate because it was common. Mark Agnifilio said at a Friday pretrial hearing for the rapper in Manhattan court. So they've said that he's a swinger. By the way, anything the lawyer's saying, Diddy must have approved. Agnophilia argued that Combs' belief that it was acceptable to have multiple partners or hire escorts proves he didn't intend to commit a crime. Okay, what? Agnophilia argued that Combs' belief that it was appropriate or acceptable to have multiple partners or hire escorts. Okay, so they're saying the mere fact that he was hiring escorts, he wasn't trying to rape women, right? Like, why would you hire escorts if you're just trying to commit sexual assault, right? So they're saying he didn't mean to commit a crime, right? Or not mean to commit a crime, he didn't commit a crime. By the way, this is how Diddy now looks here. They're saying Diddy looks very different. They're saying he's fully grayed up, hair all the way gray, beard all the way gray. And it looks from this picture, he looks a little bit emaciated more than normal. They're saying that prison food has not been so nice and well to Diddy, and physically he doesn't look the same, right? He looks different from the normal body type you would see him with. They said many people think it's appropriate because it's common. It says Judge Arun Subramanian ruled from the bench that Combs' lawyers will be able to make their swinger argument, right? But they're not allowed to name other notable figures who are believed to have allegedly hired sex workers or participate in the proposed lifestyle. Wow. Ain't that interesting, chat? Not surprised by that. But isn't it interesting that the judge is protecting other celebrities? So Diddy can't be like, nah, me and Ja Rule, we used to do swinger parties. Like, he can't name anyone else, which, by the way, for the press and everybody else who's going to be at the trial, and shit, I might even show up. That's going to be the interesting part. People do want to know who the hell else y'all were trading partners with, or y'all were having these orgies or whatever the hell, or what guys you had come fuck Cassie that got you off. Pause. The update comes after federal prosecutor revealed on Friday that Combs had rejected a plea offer. So now we get to know something even more. They did offer a plea deal to Sean Combs, and it appears that Sean Combs has rejected the plea. Now, what is that plea deal? It was probably some years. He's currently facing what's tantamount to life in prison. So what do you think they offered? Now, we don't have any details about what they offered, and it wasn't provided in court. Also, a follow-up, conversation with Mark Agnophilia, he wouldn't say necessarily what the plea deal was. I'm pretty sure at some point we'll find out, right? But he was offered a plea. And the plea deal in question, I would have imagined, I got to think it's at least 10 years. I'd probably say 10 to 30. Maybe they offered him 15, right? Anything after 30, I don't think a deal is even worth considering. Diddy's in his mid-50s. A 30-year sentence would bring him to 80s, damn near. That would be pretty much life in prison. So I would imagine that this plea deal was about or in the range of maybe 15 years. Now, 10 years, I think that's even long as well. Diddy's been incarcerated. How long has he been incarcerated for? Diddy locked up since when? Okay, since September. So it's still going on a year. He still hasn't even been locked up a year yet. It's about like 7 months so far, 7, 8 months. Diddy age. He's 55, right? I keep saying 30-year-old. 30-year sentence is definitely going to take him to late 70s, even with the 15% reduction. Yeah, if a plea was, and even now, I don't think Diddy really, I actually don't believe that even if they offered him 10, he would take it. I don't think he would take it. It's clear he doesn't enjoy being in jail. Nobody does. I think he thinks he has the best shot of beating this outright. And by the way, I do think this case looks kind of weak, other than Cassie and Cassie's, her testimony. And that's going to be really important. Cassandra Ventura's testimony against Diddy is going to either sink or allow him to have some level of flotation for the rest of the things. Because again, and I don't know what angle they're going to take with her. She's going to testify. She's going to be on there by name. There will be no anonymity for her. But I'm wondering if Diddy's lawyer is going to attack her on the stand and say, Cassie, read here. Didn't you message Diddy and say, yo, we should fuck her? Or we should, that guy, yeah, you could pick him to fuck me, or whatever the case is. Weren't both of y'all swingers? Weren't y'all both in this equally? Isn't it interesting that you're up there testifying and not being charged and she probably signed some immunity deal. They're definitely going to ask about that. Did you sign an immunity deal with the government? Because you're not getting prosecuted when you used to do the same shit as Diddy. Y'all both recruited people. Y'all both traveled around the world or flew in this person from here, this and third. We will see, right? But that is the latest. Diddy rejects plea offer. They're starting to pick a jury next. By the way, this is going to trial in 7 months. 7 months this shit is going to trial. Rather quick. There's going to be no pushbacks.
A rejected plea offer.
Individuals and alleged victims had consented to, doesn't want to.
I'm trying to see if we, okay. Now, what also came out in court is that they're claiming that there's additional videos of Diddy beating up Cassie, right? And these videos are going to depict some important shit. It's going to show this violent pattern by Diddy, but still, I think we all kind of agree, or we kind of look at it like Diddy's violent. We're trying to see if it's the sex trafficking shit, like the sexual assault. Like, is there proof that he's sexually assaulting these women or not?
Is victim one in the indictment, and the prosecution wants to introduce this evidence to prove sex trafficking, that there was a sex worker in that hotel room from which Ventura was escaping, the evidence of the infamous freak-off, or one of the freak-offs. And again, let me lay this out, what the arguments are. So in a previous filing, Combs has been trying to have this evidence excluded from trial. Obviously, he doesn't want a jury to see this. One of the arguments he made was, quote, there's no longer any dispute from the CNN footage from March 5th, 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel, offered by the government at 3 separate bail hearings, is wholly inaccurate, having been altered, manipulated, sped up, and edited to be out of sequence. As indicated below, CNN paid Redacted, don't know who this person is, we can guess, Redacted for footage, copied that footage in unknown ways, presented that footage out of order, and destroyed the original. Accordingly, all the footage from CNN is inaccurate and inadmissible. As for the 2 items of footage filmed by an iPhone 6, those pieces of footage are inaccurate and inadmissible as well. And then they go into reasons why. Now, apparently someone took cell phone videos of that footage too. And Combs' defense argued several points, like the CNN video and the iPhone videos have to be excluded because the government can't provide sufficient evidence of their authenticity. How can you prove what you're purporting it to be? The defense argues that none of the files at issue are the actual originals, even though they make the argument that they made a good faith effort to find the originals. That the probative value, so their relevance at trial to prove, let's say, sex trafficking, is outweighed by the risk of unfairly prejudicing the jury. The jury seeing this footage and all the problems allegedly associated with it, whatever relevance it has, it's outweighed by all that. Now,
Willie, what up, bro?
in a recent filing from the government objected to all this. They argued, for example, it is by the defendant's own hand that the original version of this damning footage no longer exists. It was deleted and given to the defendant as part of a cover-up orchestrated by the defendant and his co-conspirators.
Whoa. Let's read that. It's the defendant, so it's Diddy's own hand that the original version doesn't exist. It was deleted and given to the defendant as a part of a cover-up. The court must not reward the defendant. Oh, wow. wow. What the fuck? So now we're getting more details about how this footage of the hotel incident kind of came about. It's apparent that when Diddy paid for the footage, he kept a copy. What the fuck? Why the hell? It's like Diddy was keeping videotapes of his crimes. What the hell was he thinking? So either someone at his crib saw the footage and sold it. So somebody at his crib probably going through tapes and be like, what the fuck is this? Oh shit, they record it or they copy it. And that's how they sold it. Or the feds, when they raided it, they found the tape. Huh.
The court must not reward the defendant for his actions by precluding the video that remains available despite the defendant's obstructive efforts. And that goes to the allegation that he paid for the footage and hid it and all that. And I thought this was also an interesting response to the argument of authentication. The government responded in a filing. The defendant himself also authenticated the content depicted in the videos. Following CNN's initial broadcast of footage from the Intercontinental Hotel, which, by the way, we all saw last year when CNN published it, the defendant posted a video on his Instagram in which he admitted that he was in the video and apologized for his behavior depicted in the video. At no point did the defendant dispute the accuracy of the video or the events it depicted. It's a good point. And also, they say, the defendant raises a variety of potential issues with the available videos, ranging from their playback speed to their time.
Yeah, that apology by Diddy was just, I think he was trying to save his image in a court of public opinion, and that is being used against him in court.
Timestamps, which he claims makes the videos unreliable. Not only are the videos reliable, but the defendant's concerns are relevant only to the weight the evidence is accorded, rather than the video's admissibility. In other words, meaning allow the jury to decide what value to give these videos. Don't just not let it in. So, Elizabeth, I laid it out. What was the discussion regarding this 2016 footage, which I will go on record as saying I think arguably the most important piece of evidence? I say that, I don't know what the rest of the evidence is, but from what we see so far, what was the discussion regarding that footage, and is the judge going to allow it to come in?
Yep. Well, it looks like yes. I just want to spoil it for everyone. Okay. The judge.
Okay, so they're going to be allowed to use the videotape.
Is allowing this CNN video to be played, so we are going to see it. And just even taking a step back, there were a lot of moments throughout our coverage of this entire legal saga, from Cassie first filing her lawsuit, it was settled, but there were two moments outside of Diddy's arrest that were humongous in this case. One being his homes being raided by the feds, and then also when this video came out. This video is huge. A lot of people have seen this video, and the prosecution, the government has long said that this piece of evidence, the video, is critical to Diddy came out with that apology. Pieced together, one in normal speed, the surveillance video that we saw, but also the cell phone video as well too.
She is a clinical and forensic psychologist who actually testified, by the way, in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. The defense objected to her testimony. In fact, here's how the So the next part that came up was about the testimony of prosecution witness Dr. Dawn Hughes. We've discussed her before. She is a clinical and forensic psychologist who actually testified, by the way, in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. The defense objected to her testimony. In fact, here's how the prosecution described what her anticipated testimony would be like, and this is from a recent filing. The following includes the anticipated opinions the government expects Dr. Hughes will offer regarding sexual abuse and victim responses to sexual abuse, coercive control, coping strategies during and in relation to sexual abuse, delayed disclosure and memory of sexual abuse. All important to understand maybe why the alleged victims did or did not do what they did in this case. And it went on to say that the government expects that Dr. Hughes will testify about coercive control as a tactic of victimization, i.e. the state or process of becoming a victim, and a strategy to gain dominance across a spectrum of relationships. Coercive control, they say, often includes a variety of physical, sexual, and/or emotional tactics that together function to control the victim, such as actual or threatened physical violence, aggression, sexual assault and abuse, sexual degradation, financial and economic control, control over reproductive health.
Yeah, I think that video alone will get him a guilty charge. Yeah, I did. They definitely did try to poison a jury pool, a potential jury pool. I mean, that video, it allows for her to get on the stand and cry and say, yo, even if you see videos of me squirting from getting fucked by whoever, and I'm having fun, it looks like on face value I'm having fun in these orgy freak off videos. I wasn't. I was being forced. And the proof of me being forced is that if I did anything homie ain't like, he beat my ass. You get what I'm saying?
Control through the use of drugs or alcohol. This almost mirrors a lot of the allegations from the indictment. And in another recent filing, the prosecution said, quote, Dr. Hughes is expected to testify that interpersonal violence is violence or abuse committed between individuals, including rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, or intimate partner violence, among others, and also refers to dynamics related to coercion and emotional abuse that may not necessarily involve physical violence as commonly understood. Dr. Hughes will not purport to explain what coercion is under the law applicable to this case. Rather, she will explain the concept of coercive control as understood within academic literature and within the practice of psychology. Throughout her testimony, Dr. Hughes will make clear that the terms she uses and the concepts she explains are all used within the field of psychology and are not legal terms or definitions. The reason that's important is because the defense objected to this. And in one of their filings, they said, Hughes also proposes to testify about what coercion means in the context of her discussion of the concept of coercive control. And her definition is different from the legal definition. According to Hughes, coercive tactics can include not just violence and threats, but a variety of other subtle tactics, including ostensibly positive behavior such as rewards, positivity, affection, normalcy, which can create emotional attachment and psychological dependency. According to her, anything counts. That's what the defense said. And then Combs provides a specific example in one of his filings that, quote, the evidence in this case will show, for example, that Combs financially supported his girlfriends. That does not count as coercion under the legal definition, but it would count under Hughes' definition. Suppose the evidence shows that after a fight, Combs apologized, expressed love, and bought his girlfriend a gift. That would not.
Now, I hope you guys understand. So these are like the very minute things that, so they have like this pre-trial hearing, and they're going over everything that could be introduced into trial. It's like the judge saying, that's fair game, that's not fair game, that's fair game, that's fair game, that's not fair game. And it's allowing what arguments are going to be made, right? For example, the swinger argument. They said that's fine, right? Now, the small victories that Diddy's trying to win is to prevent certain evidence from being allowed in the trial, and also prevent certain arguments from being made. So if they're saying, yo, we want to bring up this psychologist that's going to talk about how abusive men control their women and then later sex traffic their women, they want to get that out of here, especially when part of the definition and explanation is saying using money to control. Well, Diddy's a billionaire. I don't know if you want to call it control, but he probably pays for everything for everybody around him. You get what I'm saying?
Not count as coercion under the legal definition, but it would count under Hughes' definition. And then Combs further argues that while Hughes provides a concrete definition of coercive control, in one of the articles she apparently cites, it's explained that coercive control.
So this is one of those big time like psychologists, but it's like an abuse psychologist or whatever the case
is really undefined. And other sources don't help her either with her definition. So in other words, the defense says if she starts talking about coercive control, it's going to confuse the jury. There's a definition, the legal definition, he's charged with crimes like this, and her definition of it. So I think I laid it all out.
Yeah, so that woman wrote a book, and some of the definitions of things she's speaking about in her book is her own interpretation through her own expertise, versus there's a legal definition, and they're saying, don't bring this bitch up in the goddamn trial. She gonna be up there talking about shit in her book while we in court, and we need to figure out the facts as it pertains to the law, not whatever this chick got going on or whatever she's interpreted the law to be.
With what was the discussion on Dr. Dawn Hughes, coercive control, interpersonal violence, and what was the decision?
So it was granted in part and denied in part. So pretty much the judge ruled they cannot talk about coercive control.
Okay.
That will be
That's a win for Diddy.
when it comes to her testifying. And she can also not testify about the intent/motivation of abusers.
Okay.
And so what was granted, though, is that she can testify about delayed disclosure. She can also testify about memory issues. And we've seen it a lot in other cases where there are victims who have, delayed in disclosing what they went through, either with, a partner or even just in general from their alleged perpetrator. We've seen that before. And so to me, I'm not surprised that the judge ruled that way. Thing bad happens.
I'm trying to
The
get
jury
through
can
this.
understand what abuse is. The jury aren't too into the weeds to not understand what this means.
You don't need an expert.
Exactly. You don't need an expert to tell you. And so the judge, by the way, will monitor these lines very, very strictly. So there's not a lot of distracting sidebars. There's not a lot of moments where we have to, for example, start court late or something like that so they can argue about these types of things. So it seems like the judge, especially once Dr. Hughes gets on the stand, will be very strict in monitoring what can be said and what can't be said. But for now, it looks like no coercive control. We won't see those words uttered out of Dr. Hughes's mouth. No intent about or motivation of abusers, but can testify again about delayed disclosure and memory issues.
And that's important, right? Because a juror member could say, well, wait a minute, if she really was attacked or was a victim, why didn't she report it? Why didn't she go to the police? There's some, and our understanding has changed, and sometimes you do need an expert opinion about that. Okay, now I want to move on to this other thing. We talked about this last time. There's a lot of discussion about whether or not the prosecution can introduce evidence of uncharged acts, like alleged sexual assaults committed by Combs, allegedly committed by Combs from back in the day in this case. What did the judge say about that, or what did the government say about that more specifically?
Yeah. So it was a defense motion, and so the judge granted it, but absent the door opening. So if someone opens the door, they can go ahead and talk about it.
Because the defense said it was so unfair to bring in all of this other stuff to prove the federal crimes. I mean, you're talking, they actually objected and said they would have to do all of this research. It'd be like a mini trial within a trial. Yeah. It's overly prejudicial. So what, in terms of, when you say open the door, you mean if the defense does something or Combs takes the stand, then they might be able to introduce it? What else did we learn?
So yeah, in a previous filing, the government said that at this time, the government does not currently intend to offer evidence of redacted unless the defense opens the door to these types of topics at trial. So for example, if the defense were able to or argue through opening statements or cross-examination that the defendant has never engaged in acts of violence, has never engaged in obstruction, or has never possessed a gun, then the government may ask the court to consider admitting certain evidence to redacted to respond to those arguments or areas of cross-examination. So again, if the door is open, then it seems like that's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But somebody just has to open that door, and that could happen just at a blink of a moment. Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out.
Defense has to be careful about what they say. All right, now there was a lot of stuff about charts, right? Yeah. And the way I understand it is, right, the government wants to introduce charts because there's so much evidence, travel records, hotel records, financial records, phone records, text messages, emails, photographs. They can't go one by one, right? So if we can have an expert talk about a chart showing, I guess, all the evidence that was collected. I mean, what did we learn about charts today?
Yeah, these are like micro things. I mean, we're getting closer to the trial starting, so they're arguing over every little thing.
Victims 2, 3, and 4 can testify under pseudonyms. The defense says that they object to particularly victim 3 and victim 4. Now, as why they don't object to victim 2, that's unclear. That portion was redacted in their filing to the judge. But it looks like for now that victim 2, 3, and 4 will continue on testifying under a pseudonym. What that pseudonym will be, that's a wait and see. But
usually it could be Jane Doe.
Jane Doe, yeah.
And victim 1, we believe, is going to reveal her name. Again, we believe that to be Cassandra Ventura. And there's a lot of reasons why alleged victims would want to proceed anonymously. You know, they're worried about harassment. They're worried about their safety, humiliation.
And if some are like possibly known figures who have gone on podcasts and talked about their time with the defendant, then I can understand why they'd want to go under a pseudonym too. And Jesse, one more thing I do want to mention is that there was a moment in court today where there were issues coming up just about the indictment, specifically the defense questioning how the grand jury voted when they did their proceedings. And so,
and by the way, you mean like the new indictment?
Yeah, the new indictment, because there's been
three superseding
indictments from the one we first got back in September. And so I can see why the defense is a little frustrated here. They keep getting more documents. They keep getting more things filed against their client. And, you know, with 2 weeks now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll see next week. So not this coming Monday or not Monday like tomorrow. But 2 days from now, we will, or not 2 days, a week from tomorrow, we will see how they pick the jury. Clearly, if I'm Diddy, you got to try to pick a unbiased group of people. Chat, what do y'all think? If you're Diddy and you're telling your lawyer, what would the strategy be? Do you try to pick all black people up there or do you not? I think everybody knows about Diddy. I think Diddy's a very popular person. But who do you think will give him the best chance of beating this shit? Let's say it's a bunch of niggas up there or when I'm just black people. Like, yeah, they know him, but maybe they're like, you know what? Maybe they're kind of on the side of it. As opposed to just white people, they might know of Diddy, but because they have like no attachment to hip hop culture, no whatever, they might just be on some, all we've heard about him is this sex trafficking shit, and it's been drilled in our brains also with that video from CNN that even just unconsciously it's just going to affect you. That they're looking at like, this nigga fucking probably did it. Somebody said we could what? Somebody said if it's black women, he's overly cooked. Y'all think so? I think he has a better chance with people that have some cultural experience. And I'm talking about people who have some type of endearing feeling towards hip hop. Somebody said no black jurors, please. Really? Somebody said everybody knows he's guilty. I mean, he's trying to fight it, so. Would I be surprised if Diddy gets a not guilty verdict? No. Now, I don't think he's going to get found not guilty. I think he's going to get found not guilty, but on some charges. I think the RICO charge, you know how I feel about RICO charges. I feel like once they hit you with that, that's the big net, the catch-all charge. I could see him getting found guilty of that and then getting found guilty of the Cassie charge, which is count 2, and then the other counts him getting found not guilty on. So it would be a mix or a split decision.
Until trial begins, I can imagine why they're a little frustrated. But Mark Agnifilo made this argument, and he said there might be a constitutional issue when it comes to this, especially when it comes to his client going on trial for what the grand jury voted for, as opposed to what has been put in the superseding indictments that have come in afterwards. And so the defense says that they're going to, so the judge didn't make a ruling as it pertains to this at all. The defense is going to find some cases that talk about.
Okay. I think we're good.